So today I wanted to take a look at this Milwaukee sander polisher, they call it, but really I'll never sand with it. I mean, I'm sure it's fine for that, but the thing is, if you're using a tool as a polisher, you don't want to be sanding with it, and all the contaminants get everywhere, and that stuff gets all on your buffing pad, and you don't want to be buffing with something you sand with, in my opinion. So I wouldn't really recommend using it unless you want to get two of them. And so this is the only model that they offer. It's just a regular Milwaukee M12 brush tool, but it doesn't really need any more power than it does. A lot of polishing, buffing is done on lower speed, so on the polishing, on setting 1 is for polishing, and I mean, that would be a super weak drill or impact, you know, so it's a pretty slow speed. It comes with this little handle, and I don't really ever see myself finding a situation where I would be using this handle with this small of a buffer. Like, I guess if you had like a really bad wrist or something, but I really think that for this size tool and these 3-inch little pads, you're not going to have this thing walking off and getting away from you like running a big rotary style buffer, you know. You're going to just, it's not powerful enough to pull it away, or really even, unless you're not careful to burn the material you're trying to polish. And well, obviously not at all on stainless steel, but when you're like buffing out clear coat, and these things are really nice for edges, stuff like that. I'm probably going to get a Flex or a Rupes this summer, because I did get this as a little polisher too. I have a small air one too that I use but for years, but I've been moving away from air as far as I can. It's just always a fight with contamination of oils and moisture in your line. I've got super expensive dryer water separators, and no matter what you do, it's always a battle. So anything you can do to get away from having to use air is awesome to me, and not having cords or air hoses is just a huge benefit. But so it comes with these 3 pads, and I got it as a bare tool, and so it came with the 3 pads, this backing pad for these Velcro, you know, they just stick on. But the thing is, this arbor is not like threaded and set up like anything else, so these just work for this. It's not like you can just go grab some threaded 3-inch disc arbors. I'm sure you could find some aftermarket ones maybe, but it's a pretty nice stiff pad. So this is where you get your give, you know, on your pad, but this is a nice hard backer. And then it gives you this for Rolex style discs. And this is for the sander I was talking about. But I just don't see a lot of use to be doing that. Well, it would be on speed 2 for sanding. And that's going to be your, basically, they're selling this back then as a polisher / kind of a cordless angle grinder option. Then when this was first come out, and for a long time that was your choice, until they came out with the M12 right angle and straight die grinders, and then they also have a big die grinder. But this thing is perfect for the Rolex discs. I never put any burrs or anything on this. It's a weird thing to try and use grinding burrs on right angle. I never liked that, only on straight. So I use my straight one for burrs. The straight one can't, it's some reason the straight one's a lot weaker. I have a video I did on that too, so that'll be coming out. But you know, people ask, well, if you have one or the other, do you really need both if this is a sander? But this thing is a far higher speed tool. This thing spins like a real die grinder. This is set up like a die grinder. I use this thing a ton. And that's the lowest speed. That's speed 1. And so you grind with a Rolex disc at a much higher speed than you would spin a polisher, or even if you bought some, you could get like sanding discs. You know, they show that you could put like 3-inch just regular grit sanding discs, 320, 400 or whatever, and you could sand things like that. But like I said, you get all that grit and everything in every little crevice of this brush tool already, and you end up just getting stuff on your pads, and you would be surprised at what small amounts of contamination on a little pad can really stand out. These squirrels that start cutting in from where that spot's dragging around on the surface. So you really want to do a clean surface. I keep all this stuff in a separate box, all my polishers and my big ones, and I have the large fuel that they make. They just came out with a rotary too, and so I'm gonna have to buy that, of course. But I did just get the DeWalt one a couple months back, and that thing is awesome, the XR rotary. But for doing the small edges of hoods and small parts of crevices of bumpers and stuff where they've got the grill around it, and you can't just take a big 7-inch buffing pad, or with the rotaries they're 5-inch, you can get like 5 and 6-inch pads, but these little 3s are really nice. Use this cotton pad, you wet sand all your imperfections out and everything, and like say you're doing a full hood surface, you would buff the hood with the full-size buffer. I would not recommend trying to do much with this thing because it does a very small section at a time. But this wool pad, once you have it all wet sanded down with your grits, and actually once it gets warm out, I'm going to do a full wet sanding video of the grits. I go a lot further than other people, like even my father, for instance, he doesn't use as many grits and go as high as I do, but the process of buffing those scratches back out with the buffer, it goes so much faster because the scratches are so fine and they've been all worked out through all the steps. So I feel like it saves me time on the actual working the scratches out with the buffer and then running the polish over it and everything. But so you start out with these wool pads, and this will pull your scratches out and everything, but it'll make swirls. And then you're going to use this as your medium and your ultra fine. So you take this with a polish afterwards, and you run this, and this will pull a lot of those swirl marks out, and then this one will like really glass it up. And there's different materials I would use for each of these, so might as well show you. So I use these 3Ms, and they make this in a purple bottles and in this yellow, and then I believe they even have one above it now too. And they're usually in a 3-step. The purple set, the original ones, which were really good compounds. That's what I used for years. That's what I really liked for a really long time until these came out, and these are a little bit more, but that's a really nice improvement. These are really nice compounds. And you don't get quite as much buildup on these as the other one or a lot of the other brands. And some of them are just brutal, like Wizard makes buffing compound, and that stuff is like major cut compound. It really cuts into stuff. This is about perfect to me. This is your compound, the A, and then this is your polish, the B. And then there's a C2, which is your ultra fine polish, which would be, or this white pad. I don't really ever find I need to go that 3rd step, so to spend the extra money on that, I mean, I can make it glass out with this polish finish. And so yeah, I think that you do want this as just a polisher, but if you're looking to do grinding and things like that, just buy the die grinder. I wouldn't get this to try and be a multi-purpose thing, because I just don't like that idea of metal shavings and stuff on the same tool you're trying to finish with. And that's a very different process, and it doesn't seem like that's a good combination for the two. So I would stick with one or the other, or like I said, if you really wanted to, you could get two. But if you're gonna spend the money, maybe get one and then a die grinder or something else. But yeah, I really do like it. It does put a nice little finish on. It's not the best thing in the world, obviously. Like, it's not gonna hang in there if I pulled out the Rupes Nano and Flex. I can't think of what it is. They got a really cool little Flex one with quick release head. And it looks almost like a multi-tool. And it's a little 12-volt tool as well, which I think I am going to have to buy this summer, one of the two. And but it's not that. You know, you got to understand that first off. But if you're already in the M12 line and you do, you know, service cars and stuff like it will buff out scratches nicely and work well. It's just not that level of a polisher as the Rupes is and the Flex and things like that. So, but it works perfect for me, I'll say. So I do recommend it, but there is guys who will be like, that's like a kind of low end thing compared to the things that they use, which is true. There is much higher end ways of polishing, but I can get that out of this for what I find. I don't do much with it. It's just in the tight spaces, and I knock all that stuff out with this, and all the large spots are done with the two that I have now cordless as well, but I have the corded ones too. But so yeah, I think it's still worth keeping this around, but like the other tools that I have that are brushed, if this came out in fuel, I would probably be rushing out to grab it, which, I mean, even the rotary, I already have a DeWalt, and I want the Milwaukee because I like the batteries and the discharge. I feel like you really get a lot of runtime out of the Milwaukee batteries. I feel like I had some matching DeWalt and Milwaukee angle grinders, and I ran them both a lot working on putting bracketing in frames to make stake bed trucks, and I took them both and put them through their paces for sure. Like a pretty rough time for a lot of angle grinders probably, but they both did well. But they would just, the DeWalt, no matter what batteries, I would use the 6 amp high outputs and the new with the new cells in the DeWalt 6 amp hour batteries, and I would bring a whole bunch of each, and you couldn't get the same time out of the same amount of batteries as the Milwaukee it seemed like by far, honestly. So I don't know if just it's that certain tool or what, because the grinder I had was actually a flexible advantage one, and I did try it out with flexible 6 amp hour batteries as well, and it didn't really seem like the flexible advantage made like any better of a difference than going high output to XC to high output for Milwaukee is a big difference. I mean, I can feel it in the tool as soon as I put them on. And on these M12s, almost every tool, I run 6s on almost everything, and I keep some 2s, and I have one compact 3, and I keep those in some boxes that don't require much. My rivet gun, I keep a 2 amp hour battery in that. You can get like a crazy amount of rivets done with a 2 amp hour battery. So you don't have to have these huge XCs. Well, they're not huge, but you know what I mean. The biggest battery they offer. You don't have to have that for every tool. And actually, sometimes it's kind of annoying if it's a certain tool, because it's nice having the little compact matching the handle, slim design. And so I think that the 2 amp hour batteries and 3 amp hour batteries, at first I was like, I'm just going to get rid of them all. I don't need these things. I'm just going to use all these big ones. But then once I started looking at it, really like learning and reading about some of the tools and what they draw and what they actually need, like the rivet gun is a good example, that it doesn't take much to run that tool. And then like you get into something like this, especially for runtime alone, you're gonna want the biggest battery if you're gonna be doing edges around a car and uh, you're trying to polish the edges of even a large section of a car, all around the doors and all of the mirrors and everything. There's a lot of small spots where you can get in with this, and you can't really, all around the window frames, you can't fit a big flat buffing pad in there. It's just too aggressive, and on the edges, and you get your trim all gunked up. So these little pads are awesome for that, and this thing fits perfect in there. I do kind of wish that they made a 2-inch backing plate as well, because there is some nice 2-inch pads and stuff that other companies make that are nice for doing some of those smaller gaps in between the window and the door on cars and stuff. So I do wish that they would come out with some accessories for these, because like I said, it's a threaded thing that I haven't found anyone else has. The way this thing is, I guess I could pop it off somehow and probably put it on something else maybe, but I would think that they could use a 2-inch pad as well. That would be nice. So, but I do like the tool, so I would say it's a decent little polisher. Because the next steps up are like $400 or $500 to get into kits of the Flex and the Rupes Nano that I was talking about. The Flex is $399 for the kit. It comes with a lot of really nice attachments. Like I said, it's got this quick release setup on it. It's a really cool little tool, and it looks like it polishes awesome. And you can get into some really tight spots, like up in places where you can't with a gun pistol grip style. You still are limited, I mean, with the pads on this thing is about as tall from face to back as an actual full-size rotary buffer, I mean, the head to here, because that's, if you're buffing and in between something, you can only go so far. So it's pretty long ways this way. It's where the Rupes Nano's got a really small head on it. It almost looks like some kind of dental tool. And they have some really small heads for these other ones that I'm talking about. And they have weighted actuators on them that actually make it the rotary style. And that's what gives it the second spin. And those things lay out a really nice polish. So I am interested to see them at some point. But when you can get it done with this, it's like buying the third step of the polish. It's like, it sounds good and everything, but that's a whole nother step you have to do for no reason if it looks like glass. I mean, I don't know, some real detailer guys, I've always been like a fabricator and collision guy, so I don't know, guys who are like really into the detailing and painting and buffing part of it, which I've done tons and tons of buffing, don't get me wrong, but they might say there is some good reasons to go for that extra step that I don't, but a lot of guys just buff them and clean them and leave swirls in them and stuff, which is like torture for my OCD. I hate seeing swirl marks all over the hood of a car or something, like, oh man, that could have been taken out in, an extra 10 minutes, so, but, so, hope you got some good information out of this, and like I said, it's an old tool, it's little brush Milwaukee, but it's good for what it is. You don't really need it to go up to a fuel, because like I said, it's a really low powered tool. That's on sanding mode, and that's on polishing, and you can almost hear it, like the buffers, they have like that high whine to them, it's where the sanding doesn't really have that same high pitch sound to it, so it is geared right and stuff. You can get some nice polishes out of it. I say get it if you're fixing cars and stuff like that. If you work at a detail shop, you probably already have a couple of different Rupes, Flex, something like that anyway, but for most guys fixing and doing paint and body work and stuff, this thing will work perfect. If you don't want to spend the extra money and especially if you have these M12 batteries like me, I have a bunch of 6 amp hour batteries. I could buff a whole car with this thing. I would probably not like it much, but I could buff a whole car with the batteries I have on this because I have so many extra M12 batteries. Well, not extra really, but just batteries. And so yeah, appreciate you guys watching.